EU's top diplomat Josep Borrell urges Western allies to lift restrictions on using weapons on deeper Russian territory.
Russia continues to fire missiles and drones onto Ukraine, some of which have been intercepted by Kyiv armed forces.
EU's top diplomat Josep Borrell calls on the EU allies to step up and agree on the use of their weapons against deeper Russian territory military targets, whilst pledging for the restrictions on weapons to be lifted, as he met with Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs in an informal meeting alongside their counterparts in Brussels.
The weaponry that we are providing to Ukraine has to have full use, and the restrictions has to be lifted in order for the Ukrainians to be able to target the places where Russia is bombing them. Otherwise, this weaponry is useless.
Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said that the move is essential for them and Ukraine intends to attack only legitimate military targets.
One of the outstanding issues on our agenda is the permission for Ukraine to strike legitimate, I emphasize legitimate military targets in the depths of Russia. And here we are mainly talking about airfields which are used by Russia to launch their bombers, strategic bombers and tactical bombers, to attack Ukrainian forces and to attack Ukrainian citizen infrastructure.
But both the US and the UK still prohibit Ukraine from using US tactical missiles and British-made Storm Shadow missiles for strikes deeper inside Russia. Other EU members believe that allowing Ukraine to hit deep into Russian territory with the weapons they provide could be a cause for escalation.
Russia has continued its days-long missile and drone attack on Ukraine, but Ukrainian officials say air defences intercepted most of the aerial rockets. The Ukrainian Air Force says it stopped 2 missiles and 60 Shahed drones from reaching their targets on Thursday. Kyiv City Military Administration officials say they blocked more than 10 drones fired upon the capital city. Debris from destroyed drones fell in 3 city districts, causing minor damage to civilian infrastructure. No injuries or deaths were recorded. Meanwhile, as new Ukrainian armed forces learn how to fire grenade launchers, Ukraine's Army General Staff acknowledged Kyiv's recent strikes on oil depots deep inside Russia. The Rostov region has been put on high alert due to burning fuel from the attacks, Russian media reports.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has announced that Poland's budget for 2025 will include record spending on defence. At more than 43 billion euros, Poland's Finance Minister Andrzej Domanski says the proposal would constitute 4.7% of GDP. This is compared to the 4.2% in 2024, which had already made Poland a top defence spender in both NATO and the EU.
Przygotowaliśmy budżet budowy i siły. Będziemy budować to, co jest potrzebne zarówno ze względu na bezpieczeństwo Polski, to bezpośrednie, jak i bezpieczeństwo energetyczne. Zdecydowaliśmy także o rekordowo wysokich wydatkach na obronę. Mówimy tu o blisko 190 miliardach.
The Eastern European nation borders war-torn Ukraine, making security a high priority. Since the start of the Ukraine war, Poland has made large purchases of military equipment, including fighter jets, tanks and missile defense systems from the US and South Korea. The budget plan will be debated with the trade unions and still needs approval from Poland's lawmakers and from President Andrzej Duda.
The EU's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, has proposed sanctioning Israeli ministers responsible for inciting hatred and war crimes against Palestinians. The proposed sanctions are understood to target National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. Both ministers belong to the far-right, ultra-nationalist wing of Netanyahu's government, and their recent inflammatory actions have sparked international outcry.
I initiated the procedures in order to ask the member states if they consider appropriate, including in our list of sanctions, some Israeli ministers has been launching hate messages, unacceptable hate messages against the Palestinians, and proposing things that goes clearly against international law and is an incitation to commit war crimes.
Minister Ben-Gvir recently visited the Al-Aqsa Mosque, a contested holy site in Jerusalem, and has repeatedly called for prayer at the site, in violation of the decades-old status quo maintained by the Israeli authorities. Minister Smotrich was recently condemned for saying it might be moral to starve 2 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. He has also been criticised for promoting illegal settlement projects in the occupied West Bank. It's unlikely Borrell's call for sanctions will receive the necessary backing from all EU capitals.
We will be supporting Josep Borrell's recommendation for sanctions in respect of settler organisations in the West Bank who are fermenting and who are facilitating expansion of settlements, and also of two Israeli ministers that the High Representative has also called for sanctions against Ben-Gvir and Minister Smotrich.
Non è con il riconoscimento della Palestina teorico, con le sanzioni ai ministri israeliani che si risolve il problema.
The European Union has been grappling with deep divisions on its stance on the war in Gaza, which have often prevented it from adopting swift decisions. But Borrell's proposal does signal increasing frustration in Brussels with Netanyahu's most hardline government allies.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris as he undertakes 2 days of talks aimed at resetting the UK's post-Brexit relationship with the EU. It's reported the purpose of the visit is to give new impetus to French-British relations. Starmer's Paris trip follows his visit to Germany, where he announced plans to draw up a new UK-German partnership treaty covering defence, energy security, science and technology. However, Starmer has made it clear that establishing closer ties with Europe does not mean reversing Brexit. He also said the UK does not have plans to join the EU's youth mobility scheme, which would give young people in the EU the right to live and work in the UK and vice versa.
Getting around Paris is a challenge of its own when you're a wheelchair user like Franck Maille. Although the French capital promised to improve accessibility for the Paralympic Games, the city's public transport network remains near impossible for passengers with reduced mobility to even navigate. Starting with the RER or the intercity train, with 2 lines advertised as fully accessible. But the reality is a whole other story.
Il y a un ascenseur, on va descendre à l'accueil, et là, ça s'arrête d'autonomie pour moi.
In order for Frank to get on one of these trains, he needs to wait for an agent to accompany him and pull out a special ramp.
Avoir quelques ratés, pas plus tard qu'hier, où la personne m'a oublié.
Between broken elevators and imprudent passengers, the journey takes a toll on Frank.
C'est une fatigue physique et psychologique, quoi. Physique parce que bon, on fait des kilomètres dans les couloirs. Et psychologique parce qu'il faut faire attention à tout le monde, à plein de choses. Vous avez vu tout à l'heure, la foule, le monde, le flux, tout ça.
Parisian metro is one of the worst means of transport. Only one metro line is fully accessible. But even there, Frank always needs to keep his eyes open for all types of obstacles.
Là, vous voyez? Voilà.
His favorite mode of transport remains the tram.
Donc là, là, regardez, là, voilà. Je fais pas de roue arrière, je fais rien. Hein.
Improving accessibility was one of the key promises of the organizers of the Paris Games, dubbed as the Games for Everyone.
C'est pas des jeux pour tous. On essaie de l'améliorer, oui. Ça, je crois qu'il y a une volonté quelque part de vouloir faire et de bien faire. Mais est-ce qu'on fait bien? Est-ce qu'on demande, et ce qu'il faut, c'est demander conseil à des personnes concernées.
On the last leg of the trip by bus, also advertised as 100% accessible, Frank encounters more issues. Due to the games, multiple bus lines have been deviated, and not all bus stops are equipped to have a ramp, and when they do, Frank still needs to ask for help to be pushed up. This journey should take a non-disabled person about an hour and a half. For Frank, it lasted more than 3 hours. The city of Paris agrees that more needs to be done in terms of accessibility.
On a aussi désormais, grâce au jeu, 1000 taxis qui sont accessibles aux UFR, donc aux personnes qui sont en fauteuil roulant, et ça, c'est des vraies avancées. Pour autant, il y a encore du travail à effectuer. Je pense notamment à l'accessibilité du métro, où nous avons porté, avec des associations de personnes en situation de handicap, un gros plaidoyer pour demander la mise en accessibilité partielle du métro. On sait que l'accessibilité totale est quasi impossible dans une ville comme Paris. Pour autant, je pense qu'on peut travailler de façon intelligente à un bon maillage territorial pour permettre aussi cette accessibilité du métro.
Activists like Frank hope these games will act as a catalyst for creating broader inclusion for the 12 million people living in France with disabilities. Sofia Katsenkova reporting from Paris for Euronews.